Hi, everyone. So I am answering a question from Kathy Gerhart in regards to how I got started in real estate. Um, and I don't know. I don't know if it's not like anybody else, but my career was in corporate America for more than 25 years. During that time, I bought my first property in St. Louis, not my first property, but a condo in the Central West End. I bought it for $80,000 and I lived there for 3 years. And then the loft boom came in St. Louis in starting around 2001. Um, and I decided that I wanted a loft. So I sold my condo. And I didn't really realize until after that time, that when I sold it, maybe a couple of years, that I had bought a loft for $80,000. And when I sold that loft 3 years later, I had put $5,000 into putting in wood floors. I still sold that condo with those olive colored like appliances with crappy old tile. There was no carpet, but other than that, it was not that great. And technically, it was a one bedroom condo, but it had the basement finish, just didn't qualify because it didn't have any egress. But that condo sold for $150,000. And about like a year or so after that, I was like, hey, wait a minute, I like made $70,000. And I didn't even think about it. So that started me to think about things like, gosh, maybe I shouldn't be living in this loft where I'm living at my means. Let me sell it, right? And so all of these things were happening for me for kind of at the same time. I did my first flip, and that first flip was completely unplanned. I learned by doing. So I decided I was going to try to update a property and make a profit, literally with no plan. I found a $50,000 home on the, I think, 46 block of Tennessee in Dutchtown and bought it. Um, Worked with some friends of mine to do some updates. Really no plan. Like, hey, this could look better, and let me just do that. And put about $30,000 into it. Sold it for 80,000. Didn't even realize that I had just lost a few dollars until my accountant told me. And I know that's like really not impressive at all. I feel like what I got was a free education. I learned a lot. I mean, it was my very beginning of learning like inspections and how that works and the different things that you have to do and how you go about getting something sold. I knew nothing about how to present a property at that time, just literally nothing. And I had a real estate agent at the time. Um, Now, I am a real estate agent if you're watching this for the first time and didn't see last night's broadcast. So that still got my attention. So I closed on that property the same day that I also closed on my loft and purchased a um, a kind of a fixer upper in the Shaw neighborhood. It was before the Shaw neighborhood was like super hot like it is now. I bought a 2,000-ish square foot home on the 38 block of Botanical for $125,000 and planned to flip it. But because of things that happened in 2008, along that course of fixing it up, I decided better to move in and hunker down and just stay there for a while because I just wasn't sure that I was like maybe not going to lose my corporate job, right? So I ended up living there 9 years, and while I was there, I got more experience, kind of updating things. Bought my first four family because I had a friend who was doing through 2008. He had become kind of basically a full time rehabber. So I was watching him. He helped me. He mentored me. I asked him if I would buy something, then would he guide me on what he would have done. And so I bought my first four family for again in the Shaw neighborhood for $100,000 for 4 units, and technically they were livable. But I completely renovated that building. It's probably worth 475 today, and it's been quite a moneymaker for me. So it was a great first experience to have. Um, in 2015, I chose to stop working at my corporate job and thinking I was going to start flipping homes full time. I hadn't done any more homes at that time, But I had sold my house in Botanical, made a bit of money, and moved to the Central West End. And I was living in a large home that technically was qualified to be like a two family, but it wasn't a traditional two family. It just had a third floor that I could rent. So I had renovated that home, and had a decent mortgage on that one. But between Airbnb was had made me in 1 year about 50 grand there. I had two different units that I used. And when I wasn't Airbnb the third floor, I had long-term tenants. So people who were there for kind of, I'm forgetting the word, for fellowships, I believe, with the hospital. So I would have people come for a year and they were renting at about $1,700 or $1,800 a month. So being a real estate agent at that time, I was a real estate agent. I didn't intend to be. I got my license for my own purposes because I didn't want to deal with any more real estate agents who didn't know anything about investing, and I wasn't getting what I needed out of them. So I got my license, but then I was talked into by my broker. He said, like, "Gosh, Lynn, you just have too much experience as an executive with contracts and negotiation and analysis of data, managing teams of 200 around the world. Like, you really have way too much experience to not be able to easily use that to make money." And he was right. I had a very large database of people that I knew, and I began calling them all. And I did like $5 million worth of business in my first year of being a real estate agent, so which distracted me from investing for a while. But I gravitated towards investors as my clients, and they weren't all fully like today. It's 100%, almost 100% investors. In any case, I was helping a lot of people make money. I was learning and challenging a lot of my investors in different ways. And at some point, it was 2016, I kind of said, wait a minute. I've had a couple levels of this, but like, hey, what are you doing with your own investing? You're helping so many other people and you're not building your nest egg. That was the plan. So I bought a second multifamily then, 75,000. This is back in the day of good deals, right? I bought a $75,000 four family in Dutchtown that was fully occupied, and again, fine to just continue renting, but I didn't. I started updating them as they would open. So one unit was open. I kind of lightly fixed that up and rented it out. And a second unit, I had to evict some people who were overpopulating, some Section 8 renters. At the same time, I decided to sell my house there on Westminster Place because of the market was, continuing to do better. I sold that property for a great profit and really fast. And so I ended up moving into renovating on a very light level and moving into one of those units in Dutchtown, which I currently still live in, but that wasn't the plan. My plan was I was going to do a renovation in Tower Grove. By that time, I had started doing some small flips. So I'd done some two-family flips, or not two-family, two-bedroom houses in Dutchtown and Carondelet Lake because they were just very accessible and easy to kind of update. So once I sold that house and I had that money sitting there and I moved into my four family, I kind of again started having this kind of thought of, gosh, I'm in a really great position right now. I used to have a big mortgage. Now I have a mortgage, or I didn't really at the time. I had a commercial mortgage on that was like something like $50,000. So I had a very low mortgage payment. But I was at that point where I now, my mortgage, whatever mortgage I had, and all my bills were paid. Plus, I actually could get like about $1,000 cash flow, even though I was living in one unit and had all my bills paid. And then I have that $1,000 worth of cash flow. So, gosh, I was so, kind of going through this thought process, and I had a bunch of money in my bank from the sale of my home in the Central West End. And then I realized my goal, well, I already knew my goal. My goal since the time I was 40, I'm 51 today, was that I wanted to have a home in the Caribbean. And I realized that now that was a possibility. Like, why renovate another home in Tower Grove when I could achieve this goal for myself, right? So I wanted to have that by the time I was 50, and I was 48 at the time that I made my purchase of the home that I'm talking to you from in Puerto Rico. So I went down the path of doing that and then renovating it for a couple of years when I finally realized that what I wanted to do was returned back to investing. So I was helping all my investors to actually make money, but I really needed to come back and expand that portfolio again. So between 2019 and today, specifically more in 2019 and 20, I did a bunch of purchases. I can't even really count them accurately, but I want to say something between three and four. I bought a four family in Dutchtown for $44,000 and renovated it. I bought another four family for $90,000 in Mount Pleasant, renovated it. I bought a two family in Dutchtown for $55,000, renovated it, and it was ready to go around the beginning of the COVID stuff, like 2020. Like September 2020, I realized that I had a lot of clients that would buy a renovated two family, and there weren't many renovated two families on the market at their price point, which was $250. So I sold that in like 5 days and made $100,000. And so I exchanged, went a 1031 exchange, and I purchased another four family, which has just been mostly partially renovated like this last summer, and it's being put into production as we speak. And I bought a tiny home in the Grove. So now I'm in the middle of renovating a tiny home in the Grove that will become my own home. And so basically, when I'm in Puerto Rico, I'll rent Airbnb or traveling nurses the home in St. Louis. And then when I'm in St. Louis, I'll do that here in Puerto Rico. So that is not only the story of how did I get started, but it's the entire journey, which it's probably just who I am. I've kind of constantly raise the bar and do what makes sense for me, and constantly moving forward. And I can't ever not look at a good deal and either sell it or buy it myself. So that's what I've done. At this point, I'm a little tired because I did a lot of activity in 2020 and 2021, and I really right now want to get that portfolio stable. Want to finish my home in St. Louis. And I feel like in 2022, I just want to stabilize and coast, right? Put some things and maybe take a break after getting something stabilized, and then maybe return to the market in 2023 or 24. I don't know what that'll look like yet, or if it'll even happen. If the market keeps going so crazy like it is, I may just look to get my portfolio really stable and stay where it's at. Or there's one building that I have that I'm not sure if it was the right selection for me. So after it's ready to go, I may just sell it. So I might sell it. You might see me selling it in 2022. Anyway, that is the story of how I got started and the journey all the way to where I am today. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry that we didn't get to talk about it last night. And I will be back with some of the other questions.